like it doesn't stop. And
Exactly.
and then on top of it, you got all that snow.
Exactly. And it is an icy, icy mess out there. I will tell you, I thought that I was going to be able to drive my Honda to work today. And after my husband bravely got rid of the 10 inches of snow that were in our driveway yesterday
Wow.
afternoon, he was out there for 4 hours shoveling
Oh
snow.
my
It was
goodness.
unbelievable. And we couldn't get out of the base of the driveway. So my car is too low. So Glenn Hickman, who is one of our engineers here at WHRV and WHRO, came out with his four-wheel drive truck and picked me up this morning, and we are here ready to do this show today. So it's
Well, good man, and
yeah,
good luck getting back
absolutely.
home.
Absolutely. And I just encourage everybody, if you don't have to go out, stay in, enjoy the warmth. Hopefully you are warm. Hopefully all the power is back. We did have some power outages during
Yes.
the storm, and so most of them are back and back online. And those of you who are not, I hope that you're streaming us, number one, and number two, that you're all wrapped up in blankets and that you will get heat really, really soon. So what can we expect, Terry? What's going on?
Well, the good thing is that winter storm that gave us the big snow dump, the one that we're calling Grayson, is out of here. But the flip side to that is it has pulled in some fresh Arctic air that's going to stay with us through the weekend. So
Ooh.
all that snow that fell is not going to melt as a result of warmth. It may evaporate to some extent, so you might see the road conditions slowly improving, but roads will still be questionable. The thing that concerns me, because it's kind of like a secondary thought, are pipes bursting.
Right. Okay.
Because of the temperatures being below freezing for so long, some people without electricity, so the house, maybe cooler than usual.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's one thing you may be thinking about is making sure your pipes are dripping periodically or at night, just to kind of forego that possible problem. The good thing is our weather is quiet through Sunday. I am looking ahead mainly to see when we're going to get up above freezing, and I think we'll see that happening Monday.
Ah, okay.
We may get a storm to bring us some rain sometime, maybe Monday afternoon into Monday night and Tuesday, but by then I think our temperatures should be up in the 40s.
Oh, that
which
that
is
will
where they're
that will be
supposed
really
to be.
balmy compared to what we have
I
now.
know. I never thought I'd be so excited to say the high temperature 44.
Absolutely, absolutely. Also, the black ice, particularly at night with the
Yes.
refreeze, people
Yes.
need to be concerned and cautious of that also.
They absolutely should, and that's the one thing that is so difficult for anybody, even for people who live up north and deal with this winter kind of weather on a regular basis. Nobody can really. Cars are not designed to drive on ice. They're not
Right.
skating. They're not good on that.
Exactly.
So at night you have to be extra cautious because if something has melted, it likely will refreeze once the sun sets. I saw an instance last night myself where I'm not sure where the water source was, but it was a business parking lot that had water coming out of it in the
Ooh.
evening. And you can't tell, is that liquid? Is that shine because it's water or if it's shine because it's ice?
Exactly.
And you don't want to find out that it's ice. So
Absolutely.
limiting your travel to when you can see well, when the roads are in good shape, that's just a smart thing to do for the next
Absolutely.
couple of days.
So, any snow in the forecast for any time in the next couple of weeks? What do you think?
Not that I see of as I
Okay.
look out for about 7 days. I wouldn't
Okay.
really want to look out much further than that. But I don't. What I see is a little bit of a pattern shift, whereas we had been so cold for so long. Now we're going to get back to normal and be relatively normal with our temperatures, or maybe even warmer than normal, than average next week. So that just kind of gives me a little bit of peace of mind.
Absolutely. Well, Terry, thank you so very much for spending some time with us here on Another View. Stay warm yourself
You
and
too,
and be
safe.
careful. Absolutely, you too. That is Terry Smith from the Weather Channel, and you all, as you said, drip your pipes. Be careful of black ice. Pay attention to what's going on and enjoy some of the snow because it is very, very cold, though. So make sure that your kids are wrapped up warm and that you're wrapped up warm if you are out there playing in the snow. So when I say the name Lorraine Hansberry, probably the first thing that comes to your mind is A Raisin in the Sun, the first play written by an African American female to be performed on Broadway. But what about civil rights activists? Gay rights activists, granddaughter of a freed slave. Those words aptly describe Lorraine Hansberry also. PBS and Independent Lens is airing a documentary on Lorraine Hansberry this month called Lorraine Hansberry Sighted Eyes, Feeling Heart. We're doing a screening of the documentary on Saturday, January the 13th at 2:30 at First Presbyterian Church of Norfolk. That's located on Colonial Avenue in the city of Norfolk. It is free and open to everyone. We will have a performance by the Not Just for February players, followed by the documentary and a talkback at the end of the program. And we're also going to provide childcare for your young ones so that adults, you can come out and actually enjoy the documentary. So we would love to see you there. We do need you to register, though. So please go to whrv.org/events and register to attend. So that is next Saturday, September. Wow. I'm thinking about warm weather. January the 13th at 2:30 p.m. at First Presbyterian Church, Norfolk. Go to whrv.org events/events and register. So to give you some more information about Lorraine Hansberry and her life, we provide today an Another View history lesson. Our instructor is award-winning professional actor, director, and producing artistic director for Norfolk State University Theater Company, Anthony Mark Stockard. Hello, Anthony. How are you?
How are you?
I'm doing
Thanks for
great.
having me on.
Great. Thank you so much for being with us. Are you keeping warm in this weather?
You know, I'm trying to. I've had to come in and out. We have a new facility, and contractors don't care about weather, so I had to meet them in the cold yesterday.
Oh, no.
But keeping warm otherwise.
Keeping warm otherwise, absolutely. Well, before we talk about Lorraine Hansberry, I want to play a clip and let you hear from other people and what they had to say about her.
Awesome.
The most ordinary human being has within him profound anguish. You don't have to go to the kings and queens of the earth. Every human being is an enormous conflict about something, even if it's how you get to work in the morning. I thought that it would be very interesting to explore the most ordinary man, say, on the south side of Chicago.
Son, how come you talk so much about money? Because it's life. Oh. So now money is life. Once upon a time, freedom used to be life, but now it's money.
Mama, it was always money. We just didn't know it.
No.
She was reaching into the essence of who we were, who we are, where we came from.
Lorraine was a very political person. Her plays, that to me is her jumping off place.
It really doesn't matter whether you're talking about the oppressed or the oppressor. An oppressive society will dehumanize and degenerate everyone involved.
Lorraine had a fire and anger and intelligence.
She wasn't a conventional mainstream liberal. Lorraine was a left-wing radical.
When I think about Hansberry, I think of her intensity and her passion for justice and her really clear-eyed look at racial discrimination and discrimination against women.
We want total identification on the basis of true and genuine equality. And if we think that it isn't going to be painful, we're mistaken.
So that was a clip from Lorraine Hansberry's Sighted Eyes, Feeling Heart. We heard a little bit of the Sidney Poitier rendition of A Raisin in the Sun, and then into the thoughts of others about Lorraine Hansberry. Anthony, you studied her. You're a student of the theater. Is that the way that you look at her also?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, the more time passes on, the less importance is attributed to our accomplishments as African-American people when you weren't living in the time that it happened. And a lot of people don't realize how revolutionary she was, how she broke down so many doors We love to watch Miss Shonda Rhimes and Scandal, but I attribute the gatekeeper to that success to be Lorraine Hansberry.
Wow.
She was the person who had a very, what I want to say, realistic portrayal of African Americans in a play that was not watered down or filtered through a lens that made it acceptable and comfortable for people to hear. And for that to go all the way to the Great White Way on Broadway is amazing. I directed that show here, my first season at Norfolk State, and got to revisit the storyline and things of that nature. But if you know the history of where she came from, what inspired that play, it just tells you multitudes more about who she was, how sort of activism and giving voice to the voiceless was kind of in her DNA, instinctually.
Absolutely. So she was born in 1930. She was born, you would say middle class, but really you could say upper middle class.
Yes,
in the sense, because her father was a real estate mogul and also started the first black bank in Chicago, or one of the first black banks in Chicago. And they were very, very active in the social rights and civil rights movements back in the 30s.
Yes, they were. Yeah. And, her education, her exposure, it's important to be exposed to things that make us feel like we have a place. And her parents were trailblazers. So, sometimes being exposed to seeing other people do things is one thing, but watching people break the mold or create the stamp that everybody else is copying, that's what she was reared under.
Absolutely.
So to me, it makes a lot of sense that her perspective of the world was unlimited, that where she could go and what she could do could happen. And she had those models immediately in front of her.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, she broke the mold within even her own family, because she went to University of Wisconsin, if I'm not mistaken, as opposed to an HBCU, which was the tradition within her family.
Yes. She decided to go to another institution, and then she dropped out.
Yes.
She had a mind of her own, and a lot of people who are walking in their purpose, if they follow that pulse, do a lot of things that makes absolutely no sense to many people.
Right.
And she definitely was one of those people. And even Raisin in the Sun, I know everybody knows, Raisin in the Sun comes from Langston Hughes' poem. But what most people don't say is that the original title, The Crystal Stair, comes from Langston Hughes' piece, Mother to Son. So some people slap that idea of, she must have been inspired by Langston Hughes, and everybody knows that poem, so she took the title. No, she was a student of literature, of the arts, and even the play's original title held on to that. Looking back on all the little clues and pieces and traces of if you put the pieces together, you see that she immersed herself in African American culture. She immersed herself in the logic and the approaches of uplifting African Americans and putting them into places, giving us a space in places we did not have prior to.
Right. Absolutely. So would you say that A Raisin in the Sun was part autobiographical, completely autobiographical? How would you describe it?
I would say completely autobiographical.
Okay.
Her parents, they lived in a neighborhood. They were the first black family to move into a white neighborhood.
Absolutely.
They were attacked by their neighbors, not like, complaints, but attacked. And it took a court order to reverse it. They moved out because a court ordered them to do so.
To do so, right?
And then there's a case at the Supreme Court, Hansberry versus Lee, and it ruled that was illegal. So this was, in the arts, when people say, "What do I write about? What do I talk about?" They say, "Talk about what you know. Talk about your experiences, or be a vehicle to tell someone else's story."
Absolutely.
And in every way, shape, and form, it is 100% clear to me that A Raisin in the Sun is autobiographical.
As a matter of fact, let's listen to another clip from the documentary that talks about that experience that Lorraine had when rocks were thrown through the window of her home.
I don't want to make it sound fancy, and it is. It's just a plain little old house. But it's built good and solid, and it'll be ours. Walter Lee, it makes a difference to a man when he can walk on floors that belong to him.
Where is it?
Clyburn Park.
Where?
4930 Clyburn Street, Clyburn Park.
Clyburn Park? Mama, they know colored people living in Clyburn Park.
Well, there's going to be some now.
In the spring of 1937, Carl Hansberry, backed by prominent legal and political figures on the South Side, decided to take a stand against segregation. He had bought a house in the nearby white neighborhood of Woodlawn in defiance of a restrictive covenant that barred sales to African Americans, and moved his family there, including 7-year-old Lorraine.
It was right on the edge of the borderline between black and white in that area, and really pushing those boundaries. Her father believed that the law was sacrosanct. This was the way that black people would get their rights.
My memories of this correct way of fighting white supremacy in America included being spat at, cursed, and pummeled in the daily trek to and from school.
Our bodyguard came out and got us when he saw the crowd gathering. Lorraine was sitting on a love seat, and that's when they threw this huge piece of mortar. That mortar lodged in the wall and just missed her.
It's in that moment that she recognizes that notwithstanding her family's prosperity, she was still going to be subject to racial violence like every other Black American.
You know, Anthony, a lot of times when people talk about race, they want to move the conversation to class. And they say, well, it's not a racial issue, it's a class issue. But clearly, from her experience, it was a racial issue.
Well, I mean, it was plain as day that is what it is. And I think anybody who, you know, subscribes to that philosophy is a little silly. Discrimination happens with many people for many reasons, and skin color just happens to be one of those very ugly, undesirable, unnecessarily, you know, I don't know, negative things that we attach ourselves to. And her life was filled with that. I mean, and after that, I mean, that was when she was a little bit older, but I know there's another story. She talks about being in kindergarten, and her mother tried to make her up to be fancy enough, you know, to be around white folk, put her in a fur coat to go to school, and she got there, and the kids still beat her up.
Yeah.
And, you know, and that experience sort of, you know, in her own words, I mean, paraphrasing here, but that's when she knew she would live to be a rebel, that experience was internalized in her.
Wow.
And clearly she had a series of experiences that made it very clear to her that in the world she lived in, being a person of color meant that you faced challenges, discrimination, and violence, not because of your behavior, not because of your ethics, not because you choose to go against the grain, but because you were born with a shade of skin on your outer layer of body that makes the world hate you.
Absolutely.
And that was reinforced, you know, her whole life.
Over and over and over again.
Yeah, so, I mean, again, her parents, to me, were the vehicle that made her see that she could affect change. Her determination was that drive to make sure that her voice got out into the atmosphere. But I think had she had a different life experience, she would be doing the same thing but writing about different subjects.
based on the experiences that she had growing up. And unfortunately, now her family, when they moved away, they moved to Mexico City, which is where her father died. And she felt very strongly that the fight to live in that segregated neighborhood and to integrate that neighborhood was the thing that ultimately took him down. Yeah.
Well, that's the sad thing. You talk about taking people down. I know everybody knows Raisin in the Sun, but a lot of people don't know the sign in Sidney Brunston's window,
right?
Which is the only second full-length piece of theatrical literature she ever wrote. She did articles, newspapers, books for days, but in terms of playwriting, she only has 2 full-length plays. And the second one also made it to Broadway.
But it didn't do as well. Why was that? Why do you think that was?
Well, the play had mixed reviews, but it was political. She saw that she had her voice on Broadway and Raisin in the Sun, and when she said she had her second opportunity, she was battling with cancer around that time as well when it debuted. The piece was also autobiographical. It was about a woman who was dealing with civil rights issues and was maybe a little too blatantly political. And people saw it. It's Lorraine Hansberry. It's the first African-American woman to write for Broadway. So everybody went to go see the show. But I think the discomfort of those people who didn't want to hear that conversation gave it mixed reviews.
But Anthony, I think it's so interesting that in the 50s, because Raisin in the Sun first came out in 59, right? If I'm not mistaken. Am I wrong in that?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
59.
So the subject matter that she's talking about in The Raisin in the Sun, this whole idea of this black family being able to move into this white neighborhood and all the changes that each one of those characters went through in order to make this move, you would think that would have been really controversial in the 1950s.
Well, but yet certainly it was, but I think that people have a different visceral reaction to what they see on the stage. Huh. We saw life played out in front of us with obvious reactions to sociopolitical, existence in the world. Whereas Sidney Brunstein's window was blatantly about, an intellectual's dealings with politics and activisms, which let the characters in the play speak directly to how they feel about the things that were affecting them. And it's one thing for it to be contextual inside of the play like Raisin in the Sun. It's another thing to give a character a voice to blatantly talk about politics and things. And I think that pill was a little too hard for people to swallow at the time.
If you're just joining us, we're in the midst of another View history lesson on the life and times of playwright Lorraine Hansberry. Our instructor is actor, director, and producing artistic director for the Norfolk State University Theater Company, Mr. Anthony Mark Stockard. So, Mark Stockard, excuse me. I want to play, Anthony, another clip. And this one deals with the fact, okay, let's set this up. Lorraine Hansberry, despite how she was treated by others who were not African-American, actually married a non-African American. And she married Jewish, a guy who was Jewish. Absolutely. And this clip talks a little bit about how she felt about that.
As a middle-class black woman, Hansberry was supposed to live a conventional life. And certainly in her early years in New York, she was not living a conventional life.
Hansberry had been in New York for 2 years when one of her comrades from the Labor Youth League set his sights on her. She was not much impressed by the radical Jewish graduate student at first. For one thing, Robert Nemiroff was already married, and he struck her as just another wide-eyed, immature, unsophisticated revolutionary. But he was persistent.
She made an extraordinary impression on him, but Bobby had to disencumber himself of a wife. I think on both sides they were happy to find someone who was politically simpatico, who was interested in the arts.
I finally admitted to myself I do love you. I thought certain things through to the same basic conclusion. First, about my work. 1. I am a writer. I am going to write. 2. I am going to become a writer. Second, about you. I love you. Problem be damned. 2. I need you. 3. I am right about those things about you which I have said must change, and I am going to struggle with you. 4. That you are what I want in a man.
I love you, problems be damned. So that just goes to show that love is universal.
Yeah.
You say that as if that's not true.
Well, at that time, as is true with most situations, here's this African-American woman who is uplifting the African-American people in her writing and in her speeches, and she caught a lot of flack from that connection. That's a nice, beautiful clip, but they divorced after under 10 years. They kept their relationship intact. They continued to work together as artists. I've not delved into the realm of those dynamics or that situation, and I don't know what information is out there about it. But to be married for almost 10 years and then to continue to work together at a time where it's not convenient. He's Jewish. Most people will see white man with black woman. And I think that dynamic was just problematic for them. I don't know if they grew apart or if it was just safer.
Well, one of the things that has come out within the past 10 years also is the whole idea of Lorraine actually being lesbian. And
yes,
that
her
this
sexuality
was
was also brought into question.
Right. And I mean, when I look at her, she was a friend of James Baldwin. She was around W.E.B. Du Bois. She was around all these very intellectual folks from the arts and from the intelligentsia. And according to Baldwin, people were just free sexually. So do we know whether this was just something that ultimately she identified as being lesbian, or was she just being free, which was the norm of the day?
Well, I guess until further evidence presents itself, we won't know. But
exactly.
But I do think that whole dynamic of that, if you're looking to be a naysayer, you'll find something, and that's usually the first two things that are thrown on the table.
Sure.
Is she married a white man and she was gay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about A Raisin in the Sun. Since you've done the play, you studied it intensely. What if for someone who may not have seen it, and I hope that everyone has it at this point in time, either the play or the movie, but what do you think is the primary message that you would hope someone would get from watching this play?
Well, I mean, there's a little something for everybody in the play. I mean, it takes its title from the poem, and it's an examination of how do hopes and dreams exist when conditions are killing those dreams, and the metaphor of the plant and it needing sunlight and water and all those other things. What do you do when you don't receive those things? Where's your resilience? Will you continue to pursue your dream? Will you stop? It all comes from the poem, and all of them have different journeys. Walter is chasing quick money.
Yeah.
Beneatha is wanting intelligence and much like Lorraine, wanting to break into a place where she is told she doesn't belong.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, she says she is Beneatha.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, she has. Just blatantly go out there and identify that is her journey. Different goals, but same arc. And it's a sad, poignant, beautiful story about dreams and that we are all born with them. That those who say they don't have any in the scope of the poem and philosophy of the play have just been worn down and eradicated from the person, that they did not exist at one point in time. And that dreams change. You know, Mama just wants a house and a plant. Give me a garden. But for her and where she comes from, if Walter and them are living in this turmoil, I mean, you can only imagine her journey. And her journey without her husband, you know, at that point, which is pretty fresh at the top of the play. So it's a play about resilience, about hope, about defying the odds when everything is stacked up against you. But it's also a story about family and staying together, forgiving each other when our pursuit of dreams are impeding upon other people's existence. It's a brilliant work. It is a multifaceted journey, and yes, it is about us as African Americans. The language, of course, the political and racial content is there. But if you have a heartbeat, you've dreamed of something. Somebody's told you no. Someone has taken a stepping stone away from you. Other people have come in and blatantly tried to block you from things. So it's a universal story, and that's why it is an American classic. It is not a black play in that category by itself. It is lauded all over the world as one of the most well-written plays to be published. And that is all to her credit, and finding ways to tell that story. You know, you can go on and on for hours trying to do biographical works on stars, celebrities, or even on, historical people. But finding a way to be as succinct as she was, although it is a longer play. But, when we did it here at Norfolk State University, we had 2 intermissions, as the play sort of suggests, and no one batted an eye. No one thought about it. Most people can't sit through Shakespeare for that long.
Exactly, because they got so caught up in it.
Yes, but this play is so very compelling. Her life, her legend, and her voice will live on for as long as we have civilization with this piece, I believe.
So, Anthony, since you are a director and you are so immersed in the theater, when you look at the play versus the film, what do you see?
Well, I'm about to direct Fences, which was a play by August Wilson, which, again, Denzel Washington starred in the film version of that. This is my strongest observation about when theater transfers. Musicals have a little better fare because they get a little more glitzy, glamoury. But Raisin in the Sun, I feel like once we go to too many locations, it definitely no longer has the same approach of storytelling. Raisin in the Sun, we are in that house the entire time. And the house almost becomes a character in it. And I think that both of them have artistic merit. Raisin has been done 2 times at this point in film versions with Sidney Poitier, Denzel Washington on Broadway with it. It's gone everywhere. But there is something about, it's like being in church. The theater, and it's not me, because if somebody offered me a starring role in a film, I would be gone in 2 seconds. However, that does not negate the fact that, when you're in the room with people watching something, hearing someone else's, you can say a giggle, a smirk, a breath, a leaning back, a quietness. You are watching a play, but you are also responding to everyone else's reaction in the room, and you're watching people. Nothing will ever replace that. Nothing will ever trump that spiritual experience of theater. And the films have their own artistic merit, but with a play like this that deals with people, and it's so intimate and it is so personal, watching the room you're in and then the box of what is allocated to the television screen or phone you're watching, it's not the same thing. It's just not. Both have their own value, but with Raisin, film versus play all day. Fences, same way. And August Wilson wrote, just like Lorraine Hansberry did, the screen versions of the original film version.
As a matter of fact, Lorraine's, the 2 versions that she wrote for screen were not accepted by NBC until she came up with a 3rd version that was less controversial, as they put it.
Correct. Yep.
Because they were worried about the I guess about the racial overtones and so forth in terms of being on TV.
Hence, you know, the reason why Sidney Bernstein didn't make it. That was the first writing on the wall for her right there.
Okay. So,
and, you know,
I want to ask you about theater as a whole, because as an actor, on a day, you do the play every day. Some days you do it multiple times a day. And how much does your emotions for that day translate into how you carry that character? In other words, could I watch you do, you meaning the universal actor, do a play on Monday and turn around and do it differently on Friday and still saying the same words?
Well, that's the other thing about theater. It is live. It is organic. You're on stage, you go up on the line, somebody bumps into the coffee table, bass hits the floor. That was never done in rehearsal. You know, there are things that make things unique in that performance. But overall, your job as the actor is to maintain your performance as directed. And how you feel that day, what goes on that day, all of those things, you know, should, you know, ideally be filtered so that when you get to the gig, when you get there and you show up and you're preparing for a show, that you make sure that you are there, you're focused, you are available and aware of what's going on. But there should be little difference in the arc of the story and how it is being told on a performance-to-performance basis. But it is also, you know, inherent in live theater that, you know, somebody might do something, might forget something, and the larger the cast, the more probable those occurrences. You know, I Sing the Rising Sea, and it was a hurricane at the time, and at the stage company, and we were there. We were trying to go on, and we, you know, started to do some of it, and then we stopped. I was in New York at the Public Theater watching Head of Passes. Felicia Rashad was starring in it. Middle of the show, like, actors come to the back of the stage. So, I mean, the more dramatic situations, whether it's weather or in that case with Head of Passes in New York, it was an actor's health. It is live theater, and things happen.
Things just happen.
Yes, they do.
So what do you do to get into character when you're preparing to do a performance? Are there certain things? Do you have certain superstitions or habits that you use in order to get into your character?
It depends on what the story is and what it demands. You know, recently I did A Christmas Carol, and it was not anything demanding beyond, you know, what is readily available to me, you know, but I make sure that my voice is warmed up. I make sure that I check in, I do my articulation, make sure that that's all consistent, you know, and to make sure that my mind is clear, to be available to the people that I am on stage with, to be present with them. I could go on and on about that just being a good scene partner. But but when I get a script for a show, I do what we're doing right now in our little history lesson. You know, anybody can grab a script and make up stuff and it be compelling, even amazing acting and wonderful technique. But when you get with a director and a cast, we're trying to tell a specific story. Because you can tell, you know, if you see Raisin in the Sun, you can see 5, 6 different productions, and you will walk away with a different sentiment because the director and the cast and the production team has guided you to have a different experience with this collection of words that the playwright has offered. So, you know, you need to know all of these things. You need to know who your character is. You need to think about the relative things of what happens that the playwright doesn't give you. I exit a scene, and then I come back in 2 scenes later. What was I doing? Who was I talking to? What about what happens in the scene that the audience talks about? Do I know about? Am I aware of any of this conversation? When I walk in, is it a surprise to me? You know, table work is customary in the theater, and a lot of it is this backstory grind to make sure that when you get on your feet in the room, we're all in the same imagination.
Wow.
We're all in the same imaginary world that the playwright has given us with our little fillers for what wasn't given. We've made determinations. And then most of it goes away because then you're on your feet and you're discovering things. But, you know, if you're a football team and the coach is like, y'all just go over there and get the football to the goal, we don't have a playbook. It's going to be a hot mess.
It's going to be a hot mess.
Forget about it.
Well,
we can forget about it.
So as a director, then you just made a statement about making sure that you deliver what the playwright provides as well as what the playwright doesn't provide. But how do you know as a director then that you're actually interpreting what that playwright intended? Or does that really matter? Is it up to you at this point to say, this is my interpretation of what he or she said?
Well, at the end of the day with script analysis and direction, you can't change the words on the page.
Okay.
The playwright's presence is going to be there regardless. If I ask you to sing Take My Hand, Precious Lord, and I ask somebody else to sing Take My Hand, Precious Lord, I'm going to get two different renditions.
Right.
But I'm going to hear the same overall structure, the same words have been spoken. On a cognitive level, the playwright doesn't have to worry about their presence because it's there. Now, the difference is if you take two different singers and you're a gospel singer and somebody else is a jazz singer, or, they're a blues or, whatever it is, you're going to have a different experience in tone, in breath, in timbre, in speed, in keys. How many times does it modulate?
Exactly.
That's what we are responsible for as directors and actors. Same words, but what will be that experience? That is what we fill in. When Mama in Raisin in the Sun has that speech to Walter about losing the money when she finds out about it, is she sad about it?
Right.
And anger, can be the instinct of dissatisfaction can be responded to in a million different ways. And the actor and director find out what shade, what color, what moment, what tempo, how loud, how soft, and it does. It cultivates each moment to moment of what those words are infused with in terms of the lives of the characters. So a director and an actor has full reign over what it is, but we'd all be lost if we weren't seeking what the playwright was trying to tell us. And ultimately, the director's vision is what everybody is trying to support. So it's really the interpretation of the director with the text as influenced by design teams, and sometimes artistic directors will come in and augment, mold things. And then you get new feedback once you get your cast members, and then you have challenges, and then budget says, nope, can't do that. So there's all kinds of things that influence the final product. But that's the beauty of it. It is the beauty of art is that it is collaborative, that you learn something new about yourself, that the audience teaches you how they are responding to what you have created, and it's something that each performance, each production is different, and Raisin in the Sun is probably one of the most produced theater plays in the country that deal with African American life. And no matter who saw what production, I saw Denzel on Broadway in the show. I've seen my own student in the show that's been directed. I've seen a dozen other productions of it, and all of them I've walked away with different ideals and understandings, epiphanies. You read your word, and you could hear a proverb or something 100 million times, but you grow older, you grow wiser, you hear it again, it's like, oh, wait a minute.
So let me ask you, we only have about 5 minutes left. I love this conversation. Are you concerned about the African-American audience in terms of going to plays?
No,
how are we
not
doing?
At all.
Okay.
No. We do Black Nativity every year. And this was my season's greetings here at Norfolk State University. We put it on Facebook, and some fool posted, why got to be Black Nativity? And my response, I wasn't going to do the professional, just delete it, forget about it. I said, no, I can articulate how I feel here, and I'm going to try to. And I said, when you go and you talk to your wife and you say, I want to go to dinner, the next question is, what do you want to eat? Why is that a question? Because it informs what type of flavor, what your palate will be receiving. And theater is the same way. If I can say I want some Mexican food, or I want some Jamaican food, or I want some, I don't know, Southern soul food, they're all different cuisine. And if I go and I say, let's go to dinner, and you go take me to some sort of cuisine that I absolutely hate, I would have liked to have known what I was going to be experiencing. And if you just called it nativity,
it could be of any type, many different things.
You don't know what you're walking into.
Absolutely.
And the name is there for a reason. And I can tell you, just being here at Norfolk State University, I don't know about the entire climate of Hampton Roads, but our audience tells us it has been so long since they have been able to consistently come see high caliber quality work where they see themselves on stage. And people who are not of African American descent who say the same sentiment, that they love these pieces, that they treasure them, but nobody is producing them.
Absolutely.
And they come to watch them. So is there an audience? There will always be an audience, but people go to what they are attracted to what they know, to what they like. And as long as people continue to make space and room for us to see ourselves, to tell our stories, to continually discover ourselves in many contexts, there will always be an audience.
And look, we've got about a minute left. I want you to tell people what the next production is for Norfolk State, because you guys are doing some incredible things there.
Oh, yeah. Well, we have the Pulitzer Prize and Tony Award-winning play Fences by August Wilson. It is the drama stage version of the movie that most people are familiar with. And just as I said with Raisin in the Sun, it is a wholly different experience. And after that, in April, we are doing the Broadway hit musical, The Color Purple.
Oh, wow.
So we're finishing out strong this season with productions people absolutely need to see. And if they want more information, they can visit us online at nsutheater.com. That's NSUtheatre.com.
Okay.
They can come to campus and visit the Spartan Ticket Center, get tickets. And they can call 823-9009, hit extension 5 during regular business hours, and a customer service representative in the box office will be there to greet them.
Fantastic. What are the dates for Fences, and then we got to go?
Fences, I should know this off the top of my head, but I don't. It is the last week in February.
Last week in February. Okay.
Yep, and Color Purple is the last weekend in April.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so very much, Anthony Stockard.
Oh, thank
you. You have done some incredible things at Norfolk State University, so I encourage all of our listening audience to go on over, check you guys out, and thank you so much for our history lesson on Lorraine Hansberry.
You're welcome.
Okay, you take care, and we'll talk to you soon, and we'll be right back.
Oh, what a lovely, precious dream to be young, gifted, and fun. Open your heart to what I mean.
And that's Nina Simone, Young, Gifted, and Black, which was actually written in honor of Lorraine Hansberry. Thank you so much for all that information, Anthony Stockard. We appreciate you. So let's take another weather hit just to find out what's going on. We're going to check in now with meteorologist Miles Henderson from News 3 to find out what's going on out there. Hi, Miles. How are you?
Doing pretty well. Yourself?
Good. I'm doing great. So is it still as cold as it was when I left this morning at 9 o'clock?
It's pretty close. It hasn't warmed up much. And that's going to be the trend here for the next at least couple of days. Sunny, very cold, and still windy, kind of the theme for today and tomorrow.
Oh, okay. So that ice and snow that's down there on those side roads and the main roads at this point probably will not be going away. Is that correct?
You're not going to see any big improvements. Obviously, the sunshine will help out a little bit, but high temperatures today are only going to be in about the mid to upper 20s. So that's not going to help much there. You're going to see a little bit of that slushiness during the day, and then as soon as that sun goes down, it's going to turn right back to frozen.
Good gracious alive. So when can we expect some warmer weather, and when can we expect to see some maybe rain to wash some of this stuff away?
Well, most of that's moving in next week. So high temperatures in the 20s today and tomorrow. Our lows will be down in the teens and single digits, so extremely cold when you wake up again tomorrow morning, even Sunday morning. Only going to reach into the 30s on Sunday, right around the freezing point. The bigger warm-up moves in for Monday. We'll jump up into the upper 40s on Monday and 50s for Tuesday. And perfect timing because that's when our next chance for rain moves in. Second half of Monday, first part of Tuesday, we'll have some rain showers in the mix.
Okay. And before I let you go, just a word of warning for in terms of frostbite for little kids that may be outside playing, parents. Do you have some suggestions on what they need to look for?
Absolutely. When it comes to cold weather, and especially when we talk about a wind chill, like we've been talking about, it seems like for the past several weeks now, we tell you that because the wind chill is what it feels like to bare skin, and that's what that number equates to. And so basically, if you're going out, if you're sending the kids out to play in the snow, layer up. That's going to help keep that heat inside. and cover everything up. So that's your typical, your hats, your scarves. If you have a face mask, the gloves, the mittens, whatever, that's going to protect from that bite of the wind chill. So then it will actually be more like the actual air temperature. Still cold, but better.
Better, absolutely. Thanks so much, Miles Henderson, joining us from News 3. We appreciate that weather update. And let me remind you again that if you would like to see a preview of the documentary on Lorraine Hansberry, Sighted Eyes, Feeling Heart, next Saturday, why do I keep saying September? January the 13th, from 2:30 until 5:30 at First Presbyterian Church in Norfolk. That's on Colonial Avenue. It is free. It is open to everyone, but please register by going to whrv.org/events and register there. We'll also have childcare available for those of you who may need it, and come on out and enjoy the Not Just for February players, who will also do a rendition of one of Lorraine Hansberry's writings. So we hope that you will join us there. And there's also a bunch of things that will be happening the week of January 7th through 15, going towards Martin Luther King's birthday. And there are a lot of things happening with the clergy. Hands United building bridges, hubs. They're doing a series of events. And so we will place these on our website, anotherviewradio.org, so that we can talk about them. But one I would like to bring to your attention is on Martin Luther King's birthday, January the 15th, there's a free viewing of the movie Marshall at the TCC Roper Center, followed by a panel discussion that I have the privilege of emceeing. So we hope you'll see you there. Next week on Another View, it's the Another View Roundtable, back together again this year, so that's sure to be a lively conversation. Our theme music was composed and performed by Jay Sennett. Lisa Godley is our show producer. Victor Bowen is our audio engineer, and Jordan Yao was standing by in case we had phones. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. Please stay safe in this brutally cold weather, and thank you so very much for listening to Another View.